Well, let's kick us off here. There was rumor circulating of a non-woke film studio.
Yeah. But it was led by Mel Gibson, Mark Wahlberg, and then I saw somebody else talking about Roseanne was in there as well. But the fact checks on that was satire.
Yes.
According to Reuters.
Yes. But what that did spawn, though, is a conversation for us of like, well, the time is right for this kind of thing.
True. Yeah. So Mel Gibson obviously is kind of butt up against Hollywood traditionally.
Yeah.
Right. So is Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg's interesting to me, right? Because like he calls himself a practicing Catholic, but then he's in like movies like Ted, right? There's a couple other ones that are kind of woke that he's in. So I'm interested about like where he actually stands, or if that's just kind of part of his persona that he put on. But Chick-fil-A has been on this path for a very long time. Most people don't even realize it. Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah. So Chick-fil-A Studios, what is it called? Trilith?
It's called Trilith. It's in Georgia.
Yes, in Georgia. We'll give you guys a quick rundown on the studio here. Pull up our notes. Okay, yeah, so Chick-fil-A is getting into the entertainment business. This is an article that popped up not too long ago, but that's the headline, Chick-fil-A getting into the entertainment business. It says Chick-fil-A wants to bring aboard an entertainment producer as it scales up its non-food offerings for customers. The company famous for its chicken has a job listing for an entertainment producer who will be tasked with overseeing the day-to-day creative production of original scripted and unscripted shows produced by Chick-fil-A and its various production partners and content creators. The content under the Chick-fil-A entertainment producer purview will go on the company's soon-to-be-launched Play app, a family-friendly platform that could have scripted podcasts and audio adventures, original animation, reality and game shows, and other live action scripted or non-scripted programming, according to the Post. Chick-fil-A indicated that the post that the content it is seeking to create would not necessarily focus on the chain of products, with its goal instead being to foster connection, care, and community. So they're leading with their values, not focusing on the chicken sandwich. Still, the listing said that one of the entertainment producers' responsibilities will be making sure the content comes out befitting of the Chick-fil-A brand and the family audience expectations.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what Trilith is, it's 1,000 acres of studios, workshops, offices, backlots in Georgia. And the address is literally Trilith is why it's called Trilith Studios. It's located on, I'm tripping. No, that's not right. It's on Sandy Creek Road, Fayetteville, Georgia. That's where it's at. And cut that part out. But they built the studio. And so a lot of your favorite Marvel movies and whatnot have been filmed at the Trilith movie studios. Mm-hmm. Truett S. Cathley said, we don't call ourselves a Christian company, but we don't hide the fact that we operate by biblical principles. And so they just operate in this way. So the types of movies that they're making are definitely in line with their brand. But it's very interesting to see a privately held company like Chick-fil-A decide to infiltrate something like movies. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a testament. We're talking about, capitalism and the market is always ripe for a better product. Right. And so if you can build a better product, people will follow. And so I think the direction that we've seen a lot of Hollywood go over the last 10 years is very woke. Yeah. But just the quality of the movies that I have seen personally, the storylines themselves have gotten very weak.
Yeah.
And so I think that just like we've talked about with the XFL versus the NFL, just like we've talked about the WNBA and how there's potential for a better product, given how terrible their leadership and pay structure is for these incredible athletes that are making millions of dollars who they can barely pay $100,000 a year to. I think we're seeing the same thing in Hollywood. And that's kind of segue into another story where just this year there was a Hollywood insider to launch a studio dedicated to faith-oriented films, and they raised $75 million to kick off this faith and values-oriented audience studio. So again, another example of, hey, there's this gap in the market. Nobody's really catering to it. I know for me and my family, it's become more challenging to find movies that align with our core values. And then, God bless a lot of the people that have tried to do it. A lot of times they're just cheesy, low quality production, And so it's going to take people who have a higher level of skill, the acumen in the industry as it relates to creating good movies,
in the capital.
In the capital, and the ability to go raise money in order to do that.
Yeah. Dude, what's interesting, Angel Studios also. Angel Studios, I think personally, I think that gap in the market too also extends down to content creators too, like that aren't film, just like everyday folks that are passionate about stories and want to convey and want to act and do monologues and do all these things. I think that ripeness of the market also extends there for people to get behind of like, these are the everyday creators that I follow that are entertaining. Because face it, a lot of people are getting large audiences for things that if they're not political, they're stuff that isn't really that impressive and definitely isn't conducive to the health to anyone's health. So I think that opportunity, that ripeness extends all the way down to the middle school kid who's trying to make some movies with his friends. Great, post it and be surprised what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting to just the timing of it all, considering where we're at, right, and kind of what's going on culturally to see this kind of rising out. And it ties in with some of the stories we're going to talk about later today. But, there is a generation that's coming up and a generation that's taking the helm that don't agree with what's happening. And rather than trying to fight it, they just said, hey, we'll just go start a different game over here. And that is the capitalistic way.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally is. There's a channel, Cole actually showed me this. It's not faith-based or anything or really moral. What was the name of that channel you showed me in Sedona? Almost Friday. So the YouTube channel called Almost Friday. And the one thing that struck me about this channel, some of the content is definitely not children appropriate. Please do not watch it with your kids, but in language wise. But the one thing that was really cool is the effort that they've put into creative in a time where people are being lazy and just going for the safe bet. They're taking all sorts of risks on their YouTube channel. And it's really impressive what he showed me. But to this point of like this market opportunities here. So go check out, what is it? Almost Friday?
Oh, I've seen this guy, the guy with the long hair. He does these like sales monologues.
Yeah, things. And they're trash, like in terms of like the content, and they went viral. But the channel itself that Cole showed us was really impressive in terms of the quality of the ideas they were developing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the purpose of why we've gone with an in-person pod.
Right.
It's why we have refrained from doing remote interviews as much as we possibly can, unless we feel like we can create a good experience, is because the barrier to entry on like doing a Zoom interview is like not that high. Right. Anybody with a whatever $10 a month Zoom account can do a Zoom interview and publish it. It's a podcast. Does that mean it's good? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so I think that is kind of the next layer of quality does matter.
Yeah.
So in the Christian, we'll call it movie scene, it's like, oh, we're gonna just create content that aligns with our values. It's like, well, if it sucks,
no one's gonna care.
Nobody cares, right? I'm not gonna watch it. There's oh man, I cannot remember the name of it, but it was like it's called PureFlix.
Oh yeah.
It was garbage. Everything on there is trash. I never found one. I canceled the membership. Right? It's like the acting is so bad. I feel like I'm watching like a 8th grader's play. It's really bad. Intentions are good, right? But the execution is really poor because they're ill-funded.
Yeah. Well, and I think the last point that I would mention too is like, for those of you out there building businesses, you're probably not you're probably not jumping into the production space. You probably, you have a contracting company or something.
Right.
But I think from a consumer standpoint, the necessity for us to get behind these companies as consumers so that they do have the capital to expand and improve on their while living in their values and creating from their values. But they do need the capital really does actually matter. And that's sometimes I think within the faith, moral spaces, we get that virtue of like, just pull it off without the capital. But dude, it takes technology. Look, do you know what kind of cameras they have today? So I think just one note that I would leave our listeners with is like, as a consumer, put your dollars behind these people instead of just being frustrated and backing away. Like actively find an Angel Studios, actively find Trilith and find their projects and put money to them so that they can get market share, they can get attention share rather. And then we all
I
win.
I think that's part of the issue too. They've always these studios have assumed that nobody in Hollywood aligns with their values. There's plenty of people that do. They're just not taking the time to go find those people who are resident experts.
Yeah.
Who can support them. They're good at raising money. They have access to people that can underwrite and fund their projects.
Right.
I gotta stop drinking this bubbly before we get on this podcast. It's so good, but I'm getting the hiccups right now. So yeah, anyways, to say all that, to say that this is what we love about entrepreneurship is the door is always open for somebody to create a better product. And what's funny is these larger companies become more legacy. They have a tendency to kind of sit back on their loins and they just protect, but they don't innovate. Yep. I mean, we recently experienced this straight up, right? So we had a company who will not be named, basically, rather than trying to build a better product, come after us and say that we were, grabbing their content when we shouldn't. And maybe some of that was true, but the truth is where they could be looking at us and saying, wow, we want to partner with you guys to build a better product because we believe our product is better. But instead they just go threaten to sue you. So that just opens the door, because I love that, because when they're just thinking that they cornered the market, they're not thinking about innovation.
Right.
And so that's what's happening with Trilith and with the faith-based oriented movie studio that just came out of Hollywood.
And if you're out there looking, there's opportunities for you. Maybe there's an idea you have your sights on, you're passionate about it. Take a leap, take a leap and go for it.
Yeah. And you got to take some risks.
Definitely.